you, my pretties, and your little dog, too. Welcome to Exit Stage Right with Martha Sullivan. This is the show where we talk about ways that you can build, buy, and eventually sell your business and secure that financial future you are so working hard to achieve. I'm Martha Sullivan. I am your host, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. As I said, this is a show where we talk about the business of business and ways that you can be your best and brightest self, as well as your company being its best and brightest self. So it is spooky season. And so I was figuring we would celebrate it a little bit and talk about, well, office witch trials and when it is good to be a witch. So, are you a witch? Are you? I am actually. I'm actually related to one. One of the Salem witches was actually in my family tree. Now, some people, this probably doesn't come to any surprise. You know, some of my former direct reports one time when I dressed up at work in a witch's costume, they're like, "Ah, nice to see you in your street clothes." Yeah, nice guys, really, really nice. So anyway, it got me really thinking about the Salem witch trials. And when it came down to it, the Salem witch trials were all about small town politics, family feuds, and the behavior of children. Now, some of those children were actual children. Others were children that just wore bigger size clothes than the actual children. But regardless, the Salem witch trials all boiled down to being a result of lack of information, lots of misinformation, petty behavior, and weaknesses in a whole bunch of different systems, including our legal system. It was just, it was an utter failure and represented the worst of political pettiness, basically. In short, I'm guessing sometimes it feels like another day at the office. I hope not. But unfortunately, I'm actually seeing this play out with some of the family business clients that I work with all too often. And very often it happens when the next generation or new generation starts working in the business, and the company, the business, the family, the owners aren't equipped to necessarily deal with the issues in terms of having the structure and tools to tamp down the pettiness and whatnot that comes into play. You know, the founding owners are faced with playing dual roles. They're the parent as well as the owner and the boss, and they're having to potentially think about ways that they're going to interact with their adult children in ways that they've never had to before. And let's face it, the kids know how to push every button on the parents and their siblings because they installed those buttons, right? I mean, that's how we know in our families which buttons to push is we installed them. And so in the absence of structure and focus and all that sort of stuff, yeah, family feuds and family politics and childlike behavior are going to infiltrate. Kind of like, you know, it's the nightmare of take your child to work day. These dynamics, I see them playing out, and to the point where they are actually sabotaging the very goal and hope and aspiration that the founder had in creating their family business. When you create and build your family business, your hope is that it will provide you and your family, your children, with a great opportunity for, um, career growth, financial growth, challenge, intellectual challenge, security and income for the family, that you're hoping that this will all come together and be a great experience for everyone. But if without structure, which trials unfold, and bickering in family dynamics can poison the workplace. And ultimately this threatens the business in such a way that it's almost an existential crisis for the family business, completely against what the founder was hoping of for and dreaming. So, when it's really, I want to share a story with you because it's not uncommon for things to unfold. I'll tell you the story about Troy. Troy is a family man, total through and through family man, and he's built his company, a lovely company with his adult children. At one point, every member of the family worked for the company, and Troy really worked hard to treat all his children equally. And all, to the extent of how he crafted his policies and compensation systems and things of that nature, it was so that the family members felt like that no one family member in theory was being treated any differently than another. And he allowed his adult children, all of them, to have, the opportunity to express their views on various matters of the company. Many matters of the company, even when that a particular matter or issue didn't necessarily impact that individual's sphere of control or influence. So people felt like they were in a position to comment on a wide variety of matters. Troy is a traditional kind of guy, and so he favored, naturally as a family man, he favored the chronology of his children, probably subconsciously. I don't know that it was a conscious decision, but that infiltrated. And unfortunately, that chronology included some led to a perception of gender bias, and that the males in the family were getting preferential uh, treatment and more sway with Troy than maybe was real, but that was the perception that grew in the company. And with every member of the family involved in the business, it's only natural that some family conversations are going to spill into the workplace, and just as likely as it is that some business conversations are going to spill into family time. Well, eventually, as is bound to happen, a personal crisis bled into the workplace, and it has split the family into factions, serious factions. And the office witch trial is in full gear, absolutely full gear, with the bickering and the sniping and the behind the back scenes sorcery and all that sort of stuff going on. Now, Troy is really the only leavening effect, but even in that he's facing enormous headwinds. And the family business that he designed to be family first is unraveling. And he's struggling because he doesn't feel like he has the tools he needs to bring order to the chaos. So when I think about Troy's situation, and I think about office witch trials and the Salem witch trials, I actually believe that They both lack the same thing. And what is that? A real witch in the room. There needs to be a real witch in the room. Now, a good witch, not a nasty witch, a good witch. There's nothing like a good, strong witch that's armed with spells and rituals to bring order out of chaos. And so, in other words, every business needs somebody willing to put in a form of structure and governance that outlines expectations, outlines boundaries, rules, and policies. There needs to be a witch in the room, somebody that is in a position and is willing and able to make the call, to call the timeouts, hold people accountable to those expectations and boundaries and rules and policies, and make sure that everybody's operating to those rules of engagement, that they know what they are and what the expectations are. Now, for business, I mean, governance is not a new concept in a company, although very often we don't think about it necessarily in formal terms. You know, for there's governance guiding ownership of a company, and it comes in the form of legal documents that the shareholders all sign and appreciate what their rules of engagement are. There's governance in every business, whether it's strong or not, but it's basically management of the company is guided by governance like tools like organization structures, job positions that outline roles and responsibilities, policies, best practices, things along those lines. And family businesses in particular, in addition to the ownership tools and structure and the business management tools and structure, families themselves benefit tremendously when there is a form of governance for the family too. This can take the form of a code of conduct that every member of the family signs in terms of what's appropriate behavior in when you're involved in the business, what's appropriate behavior outside of the business when you're a member of the family and or a representative of the family and or the business. You know, it comes down to tools like an family employment policy. What are the expectations for being hired into the business? Under which conditions can you be fired? And yes, that should be an option, so on and so forth. And there are going to be communication systems in the family around what information is shared and not shared. What are what have we agreed on and communicated about our values as a family, our values and vision for the company, and our goals. And how are we going to, as a family, interact with the other systems, the systems of ownership, the systems of leading and managing the company? They all fit together. All three of those fit together. Now, Troy and his family, they've never had these conversations. They've never talked about really what's the vision for the family business, what is the what are their rules of engagement, what are their rules of conduct, what are the boundaries, what are the roles and responsibilities, who gets to say what over what, without regard to birth order, and why, and all of those things they never talked about. And so it's no wonder that the office witch trials are in full gear. He didn't have a prayer, let alone a broom to clean up what needs to be cleaned up. But he's working on it. He's striving to overcome this. He knows he needs to rethink his approach, and he also needs to prepare the company and his family for his eventual retirement. So he is taking steps. And so I wanted to share some of these steps as an example or ideas as to things you might consider in your own business and your own, especially if it's a family business. He is indeed taking time to clarify his goals in terms of his relationships with his children, both now that are involved in the business and some now that have left the business. And what are his goals for ownership of the business and that asset? It means within his portfolio and ultimately his decision making there. He's got to communicate, and he knows he needs to communicate those goals with the rest of the family and ultimately gain some consensus around what are our values as a family and what are our values for running this business in such a way that it serves the family and the other stakeholders that it serves, including the non-family employees. And there are many of those. They need to build a common vision around the future for the family business. They desperately need to develop and institute a family code of conduct, and doing that together from the perspective of at least those that are still in the business need to have an understanding of what it means, what the codes of conduct are within the framework of in the business, and what belongs outside of the business. They ultimately they need to step it up in terms of implementing some best practices. The majority of the family members have not, other than the next gen family members, the majority of them, this is the only place they worked. They're not familiar with what the decorum is in other professional environments. And so it's a great opportunity. It's a great teaching opportunity, but also a great opportunity for the company to step it up to the next level in terms of how professionally they run and lead and operate the company. And he needs to align his leadership team with the best interests of the business, kind of bringing that pendulum from being a family first family business more towards a business first family business, and hopefully landing in the middle. That's really the optimum goal. Each one of these steps is really the key ingredients in that which is a brew and potion that is going to help build better systems for guiding and governing the company. They're really going to empower Troy to take back control of the company and its direction and set the stage so that the family can fly into the future in a much more prosperous way, and not just financially, but emotionally as well. So the bottom line is, I wholeheartedly believe that there are times that what is exactly needed in the situation is a good, strong witch to put those office witch trials to rest. And there you have it, my pretties. Thank you so much for joining our show today. I certainly had fun putting it together in this spooky season, and I hope you had a little bit of fun along the way with me. I would like to encourage you to check us out at the Providence Hill website and actually sign up for our newsletter. We would love to stay in contact with you, where we're talking about ways to build and buy and sell a healthy, strong company, as well as those family business issues that I work with the Family Business Consulting Group on serving our clients that way. And to do that, the best way to sign up for our newsletter is to scan this QR code. and go and sign up. We would be thrilled to have you join us there. So, this is Exit Stage, right? And I am Martha Sullivan. I've got a really good feeling about this. Go forward and transform your business today. Kicking me out of my chair, dancing like I don't care. I've got that good feeling. Shout it out 'cause I can't.